Hi guys, welcome back. I'm here to show you my latest drawing and talk a little bit about how I put together a drawing. Please excuse me, I'm very distracted because there's noise outside and, well, you know me by now. So this is the drawing I was talking about in my last video that I was working on, and it's finished. Those of you who watched my video for Tasha, this is Tasha. She passed away exactly a year ago, and I drew this for her, for a memorial, I guess you call it. And I'm going to put this in a frame and keep it. But it was on the end of that video that I did for Tasha. So yeah, this is how it turned out, and I'm really pleased with it. It's only my second attempt at drawing a dog, a non-human, although she was very human to me. Yeah, there's not much to say. I'm just really pleased with how it turned out. It's definitely her, and I'll try and show you some close-up details. I did it nice and light and wispy because that was Tasha. She was 11 years old when she passed away, and I think I took this. Did I take this after she turned 11? I can't remember when I took the photograph that I've taken this from, but it was quite recent. And by this point, beagle, she was a tricolour beagle, so she was black, white and tan, and as a beagle gets older, their tan starts to lighten and get quite white, and by this point she was mostly white on her face, not grey, white, and her tan was getting very light, so I decided to draw it very soft, and yeah, it turned out really well. So that is Tasha. The difference between this version of Tasha and the other drawing that you'll have seen in my last drawing video is this was meant to be Tasha. Sorry, it's leaning a bit that way. I'm on my bed here, so it's kind of sinking in, but I'll stand back a bit so you can see the whole thing. So that's it. That is the last drawing I did. I have started on another drawing. I wanted to do another version of Captain Janeway from Star Trek Voyager. I showed you my first drawing of her in the last video, but it hasn't turned out very well, and I'm trying to decide whether to keep going at it and see if I can fix it. And as I said, it's all good practice, even if it doesn't turn out right. It's practice in shading and everything like that. But I've kind of lost the will with it, and the reason I'm doing another Janeway drawing is because Janeway's hair throughout the series changes, and the other drawing I did, she's got her hair up in a bun, and the one I'm trying to do now, she's got her hair in a sort of bob, and I prefer it down, so I wanted to draw with her hair like that. But as I said, it's gone wrong, and the reason it's gone wrong is because I badly rendered it. And that's what I wanted to talk about here, is rendering a drawing. So I'm going to put this iPad down so you're not wobbling around, and I'm going to talk to you about rendering. So just bear with me for a split second. Okay, I'm back. Please excuse the noise of, I was about to say hoovering, vacuuming outside, but no, it's grass being cut. We're not that strange on our street. Okay, I've just recorded this one, so I'm having to re-record it because it was too long. So I need to keep this kind of down to the basics. Right, what I wanted to talk about this time around is I wanted to talk about rendering and why rendering is very important to drawing, and it is the first thing I do when I start sketching. I hope you can see alright. I know it's a bit off, I've got everything leaning, so it's just so you got something to look at while I talk, really, so just look at that beautiful face. Yes, rendering is the first thing that I do when drawing, and I just want to put a disclaimer here. I am not a professional artist, I am a beginner. I've just been asked to do some tips on how I put together a picture, a drawing, and that's all I'm doing. So I'm just giving some tips of my own, as I've been asked to. Rendering. Back on it, Debbie. Rendering is basically mapping out your drawing, putting in outlines and mapping it out so you know where everything goes, and you have your perspective right, and you have the size of everything right in relation to everything else, which is what perspective is. I don't know why I said that, I guess for anybody who doesn't know. Why it is important is because if you do what I used to do, because I didn't used to render, it is going to cost you. It is really going to cost you if you go in straight away doing a detailed drawing. Now I always start with the eye, So this is what would happen when I didn't render. I would draw beautifully detailed right eye. I would start with the right eye, don't know why. And there would be the eye, and there would move across, and I would draw the next eye, the left eye. Not on this, obviously. This is Tasha's side profile, so there's only one eye there to look at. But I would draw my two eyes, and then I would maybe go into my nose, not my own, because I've never drawn myself. And then I would look at these beautifully detailed things, and I would think, yeah, those eyes are too close together. Okay, so then I would be left with this decision. What do I do now? Do I erase one of these well-detailed eyes and move it, or do I just leave it because it's only a little bit off? So let's say I erase the eye. So there I am erasing this detailed eye while biting my lip and getting annoyed. And I move the eye across. So I redraw all the details of that eye. And then I look again and think, oh no, I've moved the eye. The nose isn't in the right place according to that eye, in relation to that eye. So now I have another choice. Do I erase the nose and move the nose, or do I just decide to leave the nose where it is and carry on? So let's say in this decision I decide I'm going to leave the nose. So I leave the nose and carry on drawing, and then I'm doing some details in, and this person's got a chin dimple. So now, do I put the chin dimple in the right place according to the nose, or do I shift it across and put it in the middle between where the two eyes are, obviously on the chin? So you see what I mean? It is going to throw the entire perspective off if I have one thing slightly off. And if I carry on and do the whole drawing that way, you end up with a very strange phenomenon, which I've encountered a few times, where it's the person, but it is not the person. So say you're drawing your grandma, you're going to look at this sketch and you're going to think, well, yeah, I can see grandma, but it's not grandma. It's them, but it's not them. And it's very annoying when that happens, because you almost had it, but then you didn't. So that is why we render. Rendering is drawing the outline of anything. Now, there are other names for rendering. Some call it blocking, which I think makes sense. Some call it sketching, because it's just sketched out, there's no detail in it. I just picked up the name rendering because that's what my artist friend calls it. It's like doing a stencil. Basically, you outline everything. So with this drawing of Tasha, I would have outlined the whole of the drawing, the head, that part of the body, the shoulders that she's got there. I would have outlined where the mouth is. I would have outlined the nose, the eyes, around the ears. Anything that I need to know the size of and the perspective of it in relation to something else. It needs just the outline. You don't need to put any details in, just outline it so that it is the right size in relation to something else. So that nose is obviously going to be smaller than that ear, just to give you an extreme example. But you get the gist. The eye size compared to the nose size, that sort of thing. And then the distance between the two eyes, but as I said, this only has one eye because it's a profile. Now, there are different ideas on how to render well, because rendering is very, very difficult. It is, as I said, I didn't used to do it because I hated the idea of it. It is hard and it's monotonous, but it is so important to start out. If you did art at school, you will probably remember the grid system. It is the system most people teach. It is the system most artists use, I believe, where you will get a ruler and you will get your blank piece of paper before you started doing anything, and you will draw a very soft grid all over the paper using a soft pencil so you can rub it out later. You will measure the grid so you've got nicely measured out squares. Then you will take your reference picture that you're drawing from, a printout of it, and you will draw the exact same measured grid on your reference picture. And then you can take each square one at a time to map out what's in each square and put together like a jigsaw a rendering of your reference picture. There are videos on here showing you how to do that. I don't use that system, so I can't show you how it's done. But that is the most commonly used way to render a drawing. I'm sure it works. I just can't use it because grids give me anxiety. When I see a grid, I have flashbacks to maths class at school, and that was a dark, dark place. So I use another method called trial and error with lots of practice. Just practice. If you've bought a sketch pad and you're thinking, I don't know where to start, I've bought this sketch pad and I've bought some pencils and I don't know what to start with, start rendering. Don't worry about details, don't worry about shading, don't worry about how to draw the reflection in the eye. Just practice drawing outlines. So it doesn't matter what you're drawing, whether it's a bowl of fruit, whether it's a landscape, whatever you're drawing. Cartoons, doesn't matter. Just forget about details and practice rendering. So practice drawing outlines, and it doesn't matter. I mean, let's talk about this one for example. So Snape here. Even when he was just a rendering before any details, if you got it right, it's going to look like them. The rendering looked like Snape. Even without any detail on the features, just the outlines of him, you could tell it was going to be Snape. Well, probably someone else couldn't, but because you knew it was Snape, you could see it was Snape. So that's what I recommend doing. Just do lots of renderings. Get a picture of a person in a magazine, their face, a nice close-up of their face, and practice getting their eyes the right size. Practice getting them the right distance apart. Practice having the nose in the right place compared to the eyes. Practice doing the mouth the right size. Just draw lots of outlines of things. That's what I do. Or use a grid system. And if you think you'll be more comfortable with the grid system, look on YouTube for I don't know what you put in, pencil drawings with a grid, rendering with a grid, blocking with a grid, sketching with a grid. Probably sketching with a grid will find it. And just practice doing outlines. Just outline those pictures, and then I'll do another video on how to get the details and on shading and what tools to use to do the shading and all things like that. But your starting point is getting that rendering, and it's not fun, it's monotonous, but it really, really is important, because otherwise, I mean, I've just started drawing Janeway again, and oh my goodness, something was off in the rendering, because now I'm looking at it with all the details in, and one eye is definitely lower than the other eye, and I should have noticed that at rendering stage. If I'd noticed it at the rendering stage, I could have just rubbed out that outline of an eye, moved it, can't remember whether it's too high or too low, but shifted it to the right position, and right now I would have a detailed drawing with the eye in the right place. So that's rendering, and I will be back with more tips another time. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, speak to you all soon. Bye guys!